Super glad to have you guys here, and I'll go ahead and get started. Um, so with that being said, my name is Kyle Feingold. I am founder and director, or I should just say founder at Guiding Bright Minds. And I'm going to start off with just a quick personal story. So in fifth grade, my teacher labeled me the stupid kid, the kid that couldn't learn. Truthfully, I think many of my peers already knew this. He just made it official. Throughout my years at elementary school, learning was difficult and teachers didn't understand me. I was consistently being told I was not doing things correctly and what I should do better or differently. Peer interaction for me came nothing but naturally, and making friends was even more challenging. I'll never forget the note that came to me one day during lunch recess. It was from the girl of my dreams. She was my Vanna White, and I was going to turn her letters for many years to come. She asked me to be her boyfriend. I was so stoked, amazed that she'd want to be my girlfriend. 30 minutes later, while sitting in class, I was passed a note. Yep, the good old days of actually passing a piece of paper from one person to another. When I frantically opened it up, trying to make sure my teacher didn't see the note said, "The joke's on you. I would never be your girlfriend." In my fifth grade mind, I was a loser, an outcast, and I felt like the stupid kid my teacher had labeled me. I didn't realize until many years later I had dyslexia, ADHD, and I am an outside of the box learner and thinker. I know now that my dyslexia and my ADHD are actually my superpowers. I mean, heck, I think more things before breakfast than most people think all day long. My ideas and thoughts are often outside of the box. 16 years ago, I started Results Learning, an academic coaching and professional development organization focused on ADHD, executive functioning deficits, and dyslexia. Through my experience, I realized there's so many students who feel the way that I did growing up. Today, I'm raising an incredible child of my own who has ADHD, sensory challenges, and is definitely an outside of the box learner and thinker. At times, it's tough for me, somebody who's gone through growing up as an outside of the box learner. It's hard for me to figure out how to parent my child properly and effectively support this amazing human being I'm raising. All the experiences led me and my wife to found Guiding Bright Minds. So before we begin our talk with Accelerated Schools today, I want to introduce you to Guiding Bright Minds. Guiding Bright Minds is a community meant for parents who have children that are diverse and neurodiverse learners. At Guiding Bright Minds, we believe that all children who learn differently have incredible strengths and talents that we like to call superpowers. We believe that through accessing children's superpowers and putting an emphasis on their strengths, that these children will be incredible, confident adults and with great self-esteem that have the skills to be the next generation of contributors and leaders in our society. Guiding Bright Minds is a single place where parents can go to find information on learning differences, explore their children's superpowers, and connect with screened and trusted professionals and schools like Accelerated Schools. Our organization and the professionals in our community are here to guide you, parents, on your path to addressing your child's needs and accessing their incredible strengths. At Guiding Bright Minds, we feel that we recognize the brilliance in each child's mind. We empower each child to use their strengths while addressing their needs so that today's diverse learners can be tomorrow's leaders. My wife, Tiffany, and I quietly launched Guiding Bright Minds at the end of October, and we're working to make our website and the organization a destination for all parents and people supporting and raising diverse learners and thinkers. Guiding Bright Minds is completely free to parents and teachers. So come visit Guiding Bright Minds, share it with your friends, your school, and even the incredible professionals who are making a difference in your child's life. We're on the ground floor of this effort, and we want to build it for you and with you as a community who believes in diverse learners and feels that they are incredible and amazing. You can find Guiding Bright Minds at guidingbrightminds.com. Following the presentation, I'll send you out some information about Guiding Bright Minds and a link to our webinar and a follow-up from tonight with the presentation and contact information. So before we dive in tonight and I introduce you to Evan and Michelle, I want to mention that we're hosting webinars every 2 weeks. As you know, we're super happy to have Accelerated Schools here with us this week. In 2 weeks, our next webinar is with Seth Perler. Seth Perler is a nationally known executive functioning coach, educated vlogger, and he considers himself a guy who cares about seeing outside of the box learners succeed. The topic is going to be balancing schoolwork, grades, and your relationship with your child. The middle of February, this is really cool. We have an amazing 11-year-old boy who has found his superpowers and is using it to fuel his passion. So I'll send out more information on those, but we got some great things coming up. Of course, the one in the middle of February, second Wednesday of the week, this 11-year-old who's going to talk about his superpowers. We invite you to bring your children. I think you'll all, as a family, find it pretty cool. So now we'll transition to our topic for tonight, positive reinforcement, catching kids doing the right thing. So every home has a reward system, whether you as parents planned it or not. Tonight, you'll learn how a simple motivation system can work to help increase your child's academic performance and increase their positive behavior at home. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Michelle and Evan. And Michelle, I should have asked you, I've known you for a while, but I don't want to get your last name wrong.
Tungle.
Tungle, okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So Michelle Tungle, thank you, Michelle, is Executive Director at Accelerated Schools. Michelle's a Colorado native and earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from Metro State College with a minor in reading. She's got 17 years of experience in education and has been with Accelerated Schools since 2012. She recruits and enrolls new students, provides academic and behavioral support for students and parents, and loves every minute of it. Evan Simpson is the Dean of Students at Accelerated Schools. Evan's a Colorado native, yay, and received his bachelor's in English education from CSU in Fort Collins. He's worked as a youth counselor and a mentor at traditional schools, as well as an outdoor education program. As Dean of Students at Accelerated Schools, Evan's goal is to create the best possible learning environment for the Accelerated Schools' diverse body of learners. He works to have students engaged in their own education by helping them find their passions and interests. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle and Evan and just tell you that their presentation is going to take about 20 to 25 minutes, their discussion with you around a positive reward system in your home and in the educational environment. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So when we're ready to open it up to Q&A, there's a Q&A button on your screen. You'll be able to load your questions in there. In the meantime, what I'll ask you to do is go ahead and use the chat to ask any questions in the meantime. And as we begin our presentation, I'm going to launch a poll so we can learn just a little bit about you. All right, Michelle and Evan, take it away. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us, Kyle. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we have some insight to kind of share with families this evening. I believe the slides will be available later. So if anybody has questions, please feel free to reach out at any time. I'm going to get rid of the poll on my screen so I can see it as well. So some of the things that, for those people that are not familiar with Accelerated Schools, we're a small private school in the University Park neighborhood, and we have really low class sizes. Right now, our average is about a 7-to-1 or 8-to-1 ratio. And by doing that, we are able to help students work at their level and their pace. One of the things that Accelerated Schools believes is that education is a partnership between students and parents, schools, supports, like the counselors and educational consultants, therapists. We believe that it's kind of like a trifecta. So what's being said and done in school, what's being said and done at home, what's being said and done with counselors or therapists or outside help and assistance, all needs to be saying and doing the same thing so that we're supporting these students to the best of our ability. We believe that you can change or adjust your child's behavior by changing your own. So our system emphasizes and that motivating routine behaviors that lead to success rather than on the success itself. Don't get me wrong, getting an A in a class or winning a championship if it's in sports is really amazing, but that's the outcome, that's the reward. We like to focus and celebrate those baby steps that it takes to get there, to get that A or to win that achievement. We know that when small routine behaviors are changed, that the child's self-image and self-confidence, attitude, and performance will all improve, and that makes a happy home for everybody. So tonight, what we're going to be kind of covering is the 4 major facets of our educational partnership, or what we affectionately call in the school our winning systems. The first one is daily, positive, and visible feedback on the progress working toward those goals. The second one is the reward for that positive performance. The third is finding and celebrating the small or large successes. And the fourth one is delay the critical or any negative responses that you have. So starting with the daily positive and visible feedback on progress. It's really important to make sure that you're going to chart your students' progress toward the goal every day. Now, whatever goal it is that you're trying to come up with and determine that you're going to have, whether it's my student needs to do homework every day, or my student needs to help with house chores, whether it's doing the dishes, you need to have some type of tracking chart, and whatever works best for you, family, and the age of your child. It can be digital, or it can be a paper that's hanging on the refrigerator. You just need to make sure that it's accessible for you and your family every day. Some people believe that maybe this is for the younger children, but believe me, it also works for the older children as well when you adapt it to them and let them have some buy-in and be a part of it as well. It could be something as intricate as a spreadsheet. It could be something as easy as a little chart with that you put stickers on it. The most important part is making sure that you're charting it and posting it, the success that they're having, and being continuous and being consistent every single day. You also want to make sure that the plan of the system that you're creating is going to show how much your child succeeded or achieved during the day. Not did they achieve anything, but how much did they achieve? Because it's really important to make the goals attainable. The reward for the positive performance. This is the one that's kind of really tough. Every family has a different kind of reward system. Some families like to give an allowance. I know when students come into our school and we talk about what kind of rewards they get at home, many students will say, well, I get like $10 a week and I have to make my bed. Or I get $5 a week, but I have to take out the trash. I tell the students in our school and any kids that are starting with us that I love that. That's great that you're helping with that. But keep in mind that your mom and dad don't get money to make their bed, or they don't get money to do the dishes. And we would expect that you kind of help with that because you are an active member of the family. And that's what families do, is that they help take care of the home and each other. So we do want them to have a way to earn money. For us in the school now becomes their job. And when they do well at their job, they were going to get paid. No different than what they could be doing in your home. So we kind of change it away from being an allowance versus an earning potential for these students. So the biggest part to keep in mind is to make sure that you're rewarding on a daily basis. Many parents like to kind of have this long-term goal or rewards. Maybe if you do your homework for the next 3 weeks, I'll consider getting you that game that you really want. The problem is that for many students, 3 weeks is so far down the road that after day 2, the drive and the need for that game, they've totally lost it and they think that they don't have an opportunity to earn it. Or maybe on day 3, they kind of lost the momentum and they messed up, or because they're human and they're kiddos, that they messed up and they didn't have a good day. And therefore they think that the end goal is kind of out of reach. And then you're back to the beginning with the negative behavior or the negative things that you're trying to stop. So if they have an opportunity to be rewarded daily and being consistent, even if they had a rough time or they had a rough day, you take a deep breath and you move on, and today's a new day or tomorrow's the next day, and you can always start over in doing that. So again, consistent performance, a weekly or occasional rewards, it makes it inconsistent, and they're not sure that they can follow through on it, and it kind of does not provide nearly the opportunity for students to continue that momentum. The next part that we're going to talk about is making the reward meaningful. Again, money is a really big motivating reward. I know some students that say, no, I don't need money, but let's be honest, everybody needs money. If the student is not saying they need money, they're probably something that they need at home, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's apps for their cell phone, whether it's the special treat they like at the store. You need to have money for something. So within our school, we ask the parents to no longer provide any allowance or money at home, that we want the students that the money that they earn in school, that becomes their financial lifestyle. So if they're going out with friends, or if they're going to a movie when COVID's over, or if they're running to the store to buy a model, or they really want this book, it's their money that they're earning on a daily basis. And so that money does become quite valuable to them. I have other families that have decided that money is kind of set and handled in this direction, and therefore they have other rewards, like maybe it is screen time, or maybe it's the use of a car, maybe it's a special treat. But you do want to make sure and have some buy-in with your kiddo to make sure that the reward that they're working for, whether it's a special treat of ice cream, or maybe having dessert before dinner, or getting time to be on the computer and play that game, is meaningful to them. Excellent. Evan, I think you're muted still.
Yeah. So kind of echoing what Michelle was saying, the thing with rewarding students every single day, and also having to change your routine as a parent. We really believe in that partnership and that communication, and between the school and the students and the parents and whatever kind of supporting bodies are around that. So part of that changing in your routine is finding something to celebrate, small or large, every single day. Whether your kid is in elementary school or they're in high school, they're going to have really great days, or they're going to have some bad days. That's just kind of the way it goes. And making sure that we have something positive to bring to the table, and making sure we find time to strike up that conversation. A lot of the times we hear from parents, my kid comes home, I ask them how their day was, they can't really tell me anything, and they go off into their room and do their own thing. Build that into your routine to start up that conversation. And, that can be part of that reward system. Maybe part of the reward system is like, we sat down and we went through all of your 7 classes and we talked about what you did in class every day. Building those routines in gets that consistency, it opens up that channel of communication, and it helps the whole system reinforce itself. Parents want to see their students succeed, but when I say find that small thing to celebrate, maybe, let's say it's the worst case scenario, your kid, had to come see me, the dean, for the day because they got in trouble. There's still something positive that you can find in that day. And that can be a hard thing because parents worry about having too low of expectations for their students, or, maybe babying their students too much. And I'm telling you, finding that positive thing to have that conversation is going to outweigh that other thing. So we're going to talk about delaying the negative after this, but really finding those celebrations is an important part of the system. This kind of goes into, for any of you who have taken any psychology, operant conditioning is what happens right after a behavior determines whether or not that behavior is going to be repeated. And that's why we need to have those positive rewards and make sure it's associated with that. Tell your student not only did they do a good job, but what did they do a good job on? Again, a lot of this centers around communication. The longer you take to reward that good behavior, the less likely it is to repeat. If you check in with your student at the end of the week and tell me, how did your week go? You know, that might be hard for them to even remember some of those things. They might have a couple highlights here and there. It's only Wednesday, and I'm sure some of us are like, you know, what did I get done at work on Monday? That can be really hard to do until you really dig into it. And the kind of kudos that you get, or the actual reward, whether it is that money or pay, you know, screen time, can, you know, not necessarily be associated with the right behaviors at that point. Here. So with the other part of this is that we want to delay those critical or negative responses. First of all, we want to make sure that we're in a good state of mind. I'm sure all of us have had a conversation when we're upset and said things that we regretted. We want to add that same respect that we would want to have in that conversation that we have with our students. And so we want to make sure that we're saying it in a level-headed state of mind. You know, this is applying that same science, that operant conditioning that I was talking, a really fundamental part of human psychology, to our educational process and our home processes. This is you know, applying that field of science. And we know that being able to talk about those things in the right state of mind is an important part of that. There is that fear of that attention-seeking behavior, where some students are going to repeat behaviors because I at least got to, you know, talk to my parent, or, you know, someone noticed me, whether I'm getting scolded or not. We see that common behavior from the youngest ages, you know, for the class clown in class in elementary school, to high school students acting out. And we really feel that that's because the communication that is positive is just not as consistent. So when a student becomes accustomed to those daily conversations, and you've built it into that routine of that student's daily life, bringing school home just for a little bit, then that attention-seeking behavior isn't necessarily a worry about, this is how I get that attention from that authority figure, from that parent or teacher, because I always get that, right? So I'm not going to repeat those negative behaviors. And then when we have that critical or negative to adjust behaviors that we don't like, we can say it in a delayed sense. So we can say it when both people are fully present in that conversation. A little addendum to that is, of course, safety and security come first. Sometimes you have to have that immediate knee-jerk reaction when it's about the safety of the individual. But again, increasing that communication, those are, we're normalizing having those conversations about school as part of the routine. So a little bit on this, we talked about how this system is requires a lot of communication. That is the foundation of the system between the school, between the parents, between the students, which might be a difficult thing to maintain. And one thing that we see happen is something that we call dying from success. This is a common pitfall of the system and something that we need to be aware of. We see when students are succeeding really well, you know, they're getting their weekly rewards, or their daily rewards, you know, they're hitting all of their goals and communication is good. When things are good, that's when we start to relax the system, and that's exactly what we don't want to do. We have built the system on consistency, about having good routines and good habits, and it's been a daily thing. So dying from success, when people are doing well, we relax the system, and that's when things start to kind of revert a little bit. So that's one thing, is the system has to stay consistent even when things are good. This is not a punishment. You have to talk to me after school, and we have to, you know, talk to your teachers. we want to make sure that they're in a they're always maintaining that behavior. These are lifelong goals, things that they're going to carry when they don't have, whether they go off to college or they go straight into the workforce or whatever it might be. We have hopefully built a lifelong habit, not something that is contextual or situational only to the home. So too many things being tracked. When we say find those little successes, make sure you track a student's progress, they have some visible way of knowing what their goals is. Again, that's having that conversation about what are my expectations of you and what are your expectations of your goals. Having those be tangible things, essentially not being able to nitpick and have too many things being tracked. That's going to overwhelm a parent, that's going to overwhelm a student, and it's going to make each of those individual actions less meaningful. So focus on, as Michelle was saying earlier, what are those baby steps that we take to success? What are the most important ones, and how are we making those our goals? Maybe that is making sure we have homework in every single day. Maybe that's also part of their morning routine on their way to school, making sure they showered and had breakfast. We know so many students who, without having those organizational pieces in place, are setting themselves up for failure because they're not doing the simple things that they could. Another big part about those rewards, whatever that they might be, these are always something that the student earned and that they stay earned. Your punishment cannot be removing something that was already given to them. They have to re-earn it each time, but you don't take something away. Imagine getting your paycheck at work and then getting reprimanded a day later, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna have to take that out of the last paycheck that you earned. That's just not how the real world works. So these are privileges that we continuously work to, and they're not negatively stated rewards. If we want to revisit that psychology thing for a little bit, we're not putting our students in a bad situation and we're like, okay, we're gonna lift this negative thing that we had on you, this limitation that you had on you because you're doing well. Negatively stated rewards or punishments, from years of study, are not as effective as positive rewards that students are given for doing the right thing. So that's another common pitfall, is negatively stated rewards and taking away things that are felt earned or that are earned. That just creates resentment and undermines the system. And again, as Michelle was saying, that meaningful reward is really, really important, and making sure it's age appropriate. And I think some of that's really, really surprising, what that might be for students of all ages. You're going to know your student the best. Don't make not having this thing a punishment. Make it a privilege earned, but it also has to be something that's relevant. As Michelle was saying earlier, students who get an allowance anyway aren't going to feel, that might be a reason that they can, I'll slip up on grades or whatever because I'm still getting this thing from this other source. So making sure that your expectations of at-home behavior and at-school behavior are aligned, making sure that reward is meaningful to that individual student. You might have different kids who those rewards are different things because of the lifestyle that they might lead. All right, we're gonna talk about just sort of a review on those key concepts. Transparency is absolute must with this system. I think one thing that we notice a lot, and things that we hear from students and parents that have come to our school, is pretty much any phone call home if they were at a big public school in Cherry Creek or Denver, is like, oh, my kid got in trouble. Make the communication between school and home or about school from your student about positive things, and make sure that communication is going on. So, and make sure that what your students' goals are. If they're a high schooler and they want to, go off to college, we do a lot of goal setting in schools, and I almost feel like that's sort of a gimme for a lot of people. Like that's not, that's not a fully realized goal, and you should have more of that conversation. So, what your expectations, what their expectations are, um, is really, really important. And so that's part of those daily successes and goals, is continuing that communication. Like we said, buy-in, showing them what that system is. That's part of those meaningful rewards, but also letting them choose a little bit of that. Have that be a negotiation and a conversation. If you walk away from this webinar or whatever, decide to institute some kind of reward for your at home, don't just tell your student, your child, this is how it is, and you're going to start earning your privileges or your. Have them sort of choose that. What is something that's meaningful? What do they think is fair? Yes, you're still going to be the, but it's important to have them as part of that conversation. Redirection. Criticism is going to happen. I talked about delaying that. Most students, when they make a mistake, they're going to be anxious about the conversation that they have to have with their parent. They usually realize that they did something wrong and that they messed up. They, are going to try to avoid that. So it's important, not only about delaying that conversation, but offering a realistic alternative behavior. We see a lot of times that conversation is don't do this and don't ever do it again, as opposed to don't do this instead, or what is something else we can do in that particular situation, which is a really important distinction and extension to that conversation. Coming from a place of understanding, we were all that age once, and we have probably also made mistakes in our lives, and sometimes it's hard to remember those sort of things. So again, that idea of accomplishment, like I said, finding little things or big things, that sense of accomplishment is not just reaching the goal. There's a really positive feeling that that acknowledgement comes from, especially from parents. I think sometimes parents don't realize how much their student is kind of struggling for that approval. And when that acknowledgement happens, that sense of accomplishment is reinforced on a daily basis. Eventually, those extrinsic rewards that we have for students become internalized. They become intrinsic rewards, and that student doesn't want to just do it because they're reward, but they enjoy the feeling and the process of going through that. We see a lot of students turn over and they like their routines. They might have been really disengaged students when they first come to the school, and we provide feedback about a student's performance on a class-to-class basis. They go home with a report card every single day, and students who are really unengaged, they after some time at our school, maybe it's a couple months, maybe it's an entire year, they want those scores to be perfect when they come home. So again, they start doing it for them and not just because this is the system that they were placed in. All right, I think that puts us where to questions, if we're ready to open it up for that.
Awesome. Thank you guys. So yeah, if anybody has a question, go ahead and submit it in the Q&A. There's no such thing as a bad question. So I will look for those. Why don't we get those fired up? So, I think in many homes, certainly one of the things I've seen and experienced myself as well, sometimes you get into this negative cycle, right? And you talked a little bit about it, of saying, well, why didn't you do this or do this or do this? and we all look for that reward. And some of the suggestions you made are terrific. It's hard as parents sometimes to break the cycle of that, telling, or no, that's not right. Do you have any suggestions specifically for parents on how to kind of break the cycle of always going to the negative instead of really emphasizing the positive, or what that transition, basically suggestions for that transition?
Evan, if you have something you can add in as well. As a mom, I have 3 kids of my own and I have 2 stepkids. So how many times have I been in that spot where I'm like, gosh, how many times have we had this conversation? And it's really easy to go back into you already know what I'm going to say, but I think going to one of the points that Evan said is that, we are all human. And at one point in time, we as parents were making those same mistakes. And goodness knows right now, we make mistakes. I've had kiddos come into my office before, and what I thought we were talking about, and we were having a conversation, and I kind of refer back to something, and they're like, no, that's not right. I will just stop, and I'm like, wow, you know what? I am wrong. This is a moment where I didn't hear you, or what I thought I was doing was the correct thing, and I've made a mistake. So I said, I will tell kids flat out, I made a mistake and I'm really sorry. Let's start over and take a quick break, or let's start over and have this conversation again. And say, you know what, I feel that this is going in the wrong direction. I feel that we're being really negative right now, and that's not going to help any of us. So how else can we look at this situation? Or if you were in my shoes, what do you think you would want to do? Something along those lines to kind of show them that, parents are human as well. And sometimes we make mistakes, and therefore being negative isn't going to help that direction.
Yeah. And, along with that, like that humanizing aspect, when you're a teacher, you're a parent, you're in this position of authority, and there's that natural power dynamic. And, we talk about mindfulness a lot. That's, whether it's in therapy or education, that's become a big buzzword for a while now. And making sure you own up to that, being in that role of authority and understanding that. And so, making sure you sit down and take that 10 seconds and try to, pull yourself back from the situation. That mindfulness is a really, really important part. And it is a tough thing for everyone. We definitely understand that. But, like I said, this is a routine and a partnership. And, I think it's important to also, I know the parents do this to reach out for support, whether it's to other parents or to the school or those sort of things, but making sure that conversation, you've talked through it a couple of times and trying to kind of catch yourself on knee-jerk reactions. I think we got a couple questions coming in now. So tips for implementing a reward system with a teenager when we haven't had a lot of routine or structure leading up to it. Michelle, if you want to start, if not, I got some things, but
yeah, I would say the first thing is to definitely have their involvement in creating it. Letting them know that whatever it is that you're trying to change, whether it's something within the home, or whether it's helping take it through the chores, or whether it's a school related issue, because we want to make sure we're doing homework every day, letting them know that, it seems like what we're doing right now isn't working, and we're wanting to create a new system. Would you, have them help to create the system? You're going to be more the coach and guiding it to the direction that you want. But if they're offering their tips or ideas or suggestions, or, yeah, I think I can do that every day, or that might be kind of hard. And then let them know that, hey, this is not going to be set in stone, but we're going to try this out, and we're going to work toward this. And if we need to adjust it to make a better system for our family, then that's what we're going to do. But having them kind of help create it will also give in a lot of the buy-in for them.
And having some sort of physical structure, Michelle said, maybe you have some sort of spreadsheet, maybe you have a chart, for an older student, a teenager, especially a high school, who, might have their first part-time job or something like that, like I still clock in with a time card. You know, tell them about kind of that real side of it, because with a young kid, something like a chore chart where you have things that you check off or use stickers is going to work. With an older kid, that's going to feel demeaning to them. And so having it, you know, hey, like at my job, I clock in, you know, like I have a timesheet, and, you know, that's how the real world works. We do a lot of contracts between students and, you know, maybe a specific teacher or from the parents, those academic and behavioral contracts that say, here are the expectations that you're living up to. Even just going through that process in a very formal way can help, again, making those expectations transparent, you know, and also say, you know, come from that place of humility, saying like, I need your help. You know, this is a situation that is going to benefit both of us, is sort of an important part of that.
And to just add a little bit on to that, within our school, even like the very first day of school, we sit down with all of the students and we go through our student handbook, but we do not call our student handbook the rules. We're calling them agreements, because this is what we're asking of you and this is what we are going to do for you. So it's an agreement between the school and the students and the teachers and the staff. So kind of changing the vocabulary there makes a big difference as well, because it kind of changes the mindset.
I think that's an awesome suggestion, Michelle. Thanks for that.
Thanks.
So real quick, sorry to cut in line. I'm going to answer the one that was put in chat. So for the future, try to throw those in the Q&A section, but I'm going to forget about it unless I look at it now. So we had a question: if a child has dyslexia or ADD, how do you encourage your child to take the straight road to a task rather than taking a curvy path without crushing their creativity, curiosity, powers of observation? I purchased a time timer. Does that fit into a positive reinforcement system? All right. So we definitely recognize a huge variety of different learning differences among students. And I think there is that balance between, I get that, you know, that crushing creativity. And I would encourage you, I guess, to have them kind of treat tasks that they have to do like a puzzle. You know, there's this idea that limitation breeds creativity. And so saying, how can you do this that best fits you within these particular boundaries that you're, you know, stuck in? You know, and I think, first of all, depending on the educational situation, making sure those proper services are being honored at the school that you're at. You know, whether that's in the form of IEP or 504 or whatever it might be, because that needs to be communicated with the staff and teachers that are supporting that student.
Yeah, and actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to chime in on this.
They need to be, yeah.
I love to chime. I didn't mean to cut it. Your thought. You want to finish?
No, you're perfect. That was
cool.
pretty much the end of it. Yeah.
Cool. So, you know, I have a slide that I use sometimes, and in presentations I do, and it is a child who takes their curvy path. And the whole idea is you have to get the mail to the mailbox quickly before the mailman comes. And the curvy path that this child takes is a lot of fun, kind of as you described, but they missed the mailman on the way. So, you know, when you're thinking about that, first I would suggest, and we've done some of this in our own home, and we've seen what some of it work and some of it not, but model the kind of behavior and structure you're looking for. And then even ask your child questions, vary it up. After you model it a few times, you can say, hey, do you think that was the best way to do it? By you vary it up a little bit and do something different. And you'd be surprised. Your child might go, wait, you did this last time. Why did you do that differently? So asking that question. And then the visual timer is a great one. I don't know how old your child is, but we've purchased a visual timer, and we recommend that all the time. And the visual timers with practice really can give your child independence. So if they have 10 minutes, for example, to brush their teeth and wash their hands, At first, they're not going to make that 10 minutes, but giving them that visual representation with the time timer of what 10 minutes looks like so they can see it ticking away. What we've noticed with a lot of students, I've noticed it with my own son, is that they wait till it gets really, that red on the time timer gets very skinny, where there's only a couple minutes left, and then they try and rush to get everything done. If you do it over and over with some repetition, you're going to find more than likely your child starts to realize that there is actually 10 minutes they can work with, and not just the 2 or 3 right before it buzzes. The last thing I'll say is, if you can give them that leeway within the time on how they want to use the time, the goal is to help them get the task done. But if they want to do some curves, make it a little curvy on the way to getting it done within that time, that's okay. Just really that repetition and that positive encouragement of what went well, and then maybe even talking with them of what can you do different next time to get it done within the time. So.
All right, thanks, Kyle. We're gonna, unless Michelle, you had something to add, we're gonna move to the
No,
next
I
question.
think you guys covered it very well.
So for my 6-year-old, what is too many behaviors to focus on for their daily rewards? My son's current system at their school, where he can get as many as 20 stickers for positive behavior and gets a prize after 17 or more. Is this too much? Also, the system seems to work much better at school, but then doesn't work as well as home. Is that normal? So first of all, yeah, that is pretty normal. Some behavior is really contextual. They have peers there that are reinforcing that behavior. They want to fit in with other people doing the same things as them. So it can be really hard to transition those behaviors at school. Some parents, when we say, oh, your kid's an absolute angel at school, are really surprised to hear that, because sometimes that behavior is school specific. The reverse can be true. We do have to make that negative call about behavior, and that parent will say, well, my kid's not like that at home. So that much of it is definitely a pretty common thing. But they're also young, 6 years old. I don't know exactly what that system looks like, but there are a lot of behaviors that they are learning for the first time that are super integrated. That might be something like washing your hands or saying thank you or opening the door for someone. These are things that are built into our routines. So I don't know if that's necessarily too much, but I would try to, maintain that same exact system at home for that consistency. Hopefully that sort of answers it. If not, go ahead and add an additional question in the Q&A.
To jump on that, I would say for 20 stickers or 20 small behaviors that this 6-year-old is earning in school, like Evan kind of mentioned, is probably quite appropriate, because they are probably very small little baby steps during the day. Because 6-year-old, I'm assuming, is kindergarten or first grade. 20 behaviors that you're looking for at home would be way too many. You want to focus on a much smaller amount that you can have more success with. And then as they kind of grow, maybe kind of fade into another one or add other things as the student gets older. But 20 at home would be too much. Like Evan was saying, it's probably they came in and they hung up their backpack. That's your first sticker because you did it. So all these tiny little ones would make sense.
So is there a general timeline for knowing if the system is working, in our opinion? In other words, if we're being consistent with rewarding positive behavior, how long before we'd see the behavioral change? Well, as far as you're saying it being intrinsic in that student, if you dropped everything that, you think that they would be doing those things on their own, I just would never suggest that. Consistently keeping the reinforcement is an important part of the system. And, maybe you're setting those goalposts a little bit higher the longer you keep the system. I would say we have seen students go through a 2-week honeymoon period where they do really well, and then they kind of fall off. And then we see some real changes, it's usually like 6 weeks, or it might even take, multiple months for a student to really be hitting all of our higher expectations. But that's part of it, is sometimes you got to move those goalposts a little bit, but they need to experience success as soon as the system starts. You can't have these expectations and then have them fail on day one. So I think that's an important part, is constantly be looking for those successes. There should always be behaviors that you're rewarding or are able to reward, but you can also make those goalposts go higher as the system goes on. I would say the one thing that you don't do is, let's see if they can do this on their own. You know, the time that that's going to be is as they're approaching that age of actually being fully independent. That's when you would really want to see, are they going to do these things on their own?
Yeah, and there's some stats out there that show that, some research out there that shows that for a grown adult, for an average adult, it takes 66 repetitions to build a new skill, not including the time it takes to break them, or break the new habit or skill. For a child with any kind of neurodiversity or diversity, it can take up to 254 repetitions for something to become automatic or more. So just keep that in mind. It's, as Evan said, it's kind of an up and down road, and we're going to celebrate those ups, talk through the downs, and just keep supporting them. Sometimes it can be a long road, but and challenging. But if you keep it up, I think you'll find it worth it.
All right. Michelle, you had anything to add on that one?
No, I'd say just the consistency. It's a roller coaster. It's an ebb and flow. And some days you're going to be like, they got it. And the next week it'll be like, oh my gosh, where are we going with this? But being consistent and continuing on, it's the most important part.
Looks like we got a couple for Kyle, mostly about the recording of the meeting and about the visual timer.
Yeah, so we will send this out tomorrow to everybody. So definitely expect that. And then with the visual timer, and by the way, if you don't for some reason get an email, you can, guidingbrightminds.com. If you go to guidingbrightminds.com and submit a form just saying you need the presentation, I'll resend it to you. We've had a few in the past where it hit the junk box or didn't quite get to you. So if you don't get it, please submit something through guidingbrightminds.com and we'll make sure we get it to you. Last thing in regards to the timer, somebody asked a question about, would it be demeaning to use a visual timer with a teenage child when they're not used to it? And I would say, I'd go back to something Evan said earlier, and that's, I think Michelle said it a while ago as well, and that's buy-in, right? If you're going to force the issue with the child to say, we're going to use this, it's not going to work. But if you can sit down and have a conversation or conversations, and with some time, and the child realizes, hey, I really am having trouble getting out the door to school on time, and it's not what I want to be doing, then coming up with a solution like something visual, say, you know what, you have a visual strength. And when you see something, you do it really well. Here's one of the things that we can do. So really turning it into a strength and using one of their strengths to help them learn something new. But it definitely is going to take buy-in for sure. Awesome.
And
So
our last one,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say,
No, go
Angela
ahead,
says, thank you. We just want to say you're welcome. So Kyle, you want to, close us off. Thank you.
Yeah, we I appreciate the comments. I've had several people say thank you and helpful. Thank you all for being here tonight. Evan and Michelle, thank you guys. I've known Accelerated Schools for some time, and I love that you meet students where they're at, and that really every student has an individualized academic plan. So a student, from what I understand, through being there or being at the school in the past, even students in the same classroom have different academic plans based upon where they're at. And I love that about Accelerated Schools. And I think, what you guys are doing for kids is incredible. And we're fortunate to have you here tonight. And thanks so much, Evan and Michelle, for joining us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, it was our pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah. Hope to see you again, and have a great evening.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.